Good morning, everybody, and this is your Forex day trade setups for today. So, non-farm payrolls, bad number, impacts the dollar, strengthens the dollar basically, and we dropped into this area. So we dropped right straight through the area, the two areas that we were looking at to buy off last week, and now your next level is down here, but then you've also got these gaps to the downside. So depending on what we see now in the hour, you'd probably be wise to be looking for a rejection higher up, and at the moment that is kind of your rejection area there. So I'd be looking for 108925 and possibly 108656. So if we get a rejection off there, it could be a continuation to the downside. There's also a trend line here as well in the zone. So if we get above this, then I would sit quietly and wait for better structure for a move higher, because this is really ranging at the moment. So that's kind of the view at the moment. Don't want to jump in short at the bottom here. We want to wait for price to come back, reject an area, and then we would look for a continuation to the downside. And that all depends what the market's going to do with the data. Moving on to US dollar Japanese yen, this is a similar situation here. So we've had the structure, we've broken through the structure. Let me just get it there. So you can see support in the past, resistance. So at the moment we are in a downward trend on the 8th hour. There's no two ways about that. We've gapped up, and it all depends what happens here. I don't think you're going to get a breakaway gap just yet. Probably going to get a bit of a pullback, and that's going to be a little bit bearish, to be honest. So you can see there's two gaps here as well. So for me, I'd want to see what happens, and I'm going to be really cautious, should I say. So 130.675, there will be a little bit of bounce off there, but then there's going to be these massive gaps to the downside. So then I would see what happens at 130.056. If we can get some support down here, then I'd look for an opportunity to buy, anticipating a continuation up. But I'm also, just bear in mind on the dollar, I'm a little bit cautious. The outlook from the Feds versus non-farm payrolls. The non-farm payrolls are one bit of data, but the outlook from the Feds is a little bit different to what most economists were thinking. So a little bit cautious, but probably wise just to sit quietly with the dollar and wait for this for some structure. Just wait for the volatility to finish, and then we can jump in and get some trades. Moving on to British pound, Japanese yen. We have come back to test 159.509, and that has happened during the Asian session. There it is there. We haven't quite got there. So I'd be curious to see what happens here. This is for rejection. We get a rejection up here. I am looking for a continuation to the downside, and you can see there is our trend line there. So getting above 159.509, that starts triggering longs, but at the moment, let's see what happens here at the open, at the European Open. If we reject this area properly, I'd expect to move down. If we do get above it, you've got a little inverse head and shoulders forming, so that could be quite a dramatic trade back to the top of this cluster here. Somehow I don't think it's going to happen, to be honest. I think you're more than likely going to get a rejection here, and I would just put these levels in as well. There's another very strong level up here at 160. So just pay attention to what happens here. Trend line, there's so much resistance here that I think you'd be wise just to wait to see what happens and then look for the move to the downside. Probably first close this gap and then see what happens after that. Moving on to Euro British pound, and yeah, last week was a bit of a tear. If you look at that, nice solid bullish bar. Now if we look at that on the hour, on the 8th hour, we're looking for opportunities to buy. This was a structure we were looking at last week. Nothing's really happened of that, so you'd be wise to look for lower, or should I say higher structure on a lower time frame. And I'm just going to bring this one up here. So I'd be looking to see what happens here. 0.89452. Look at the oscillators, they're starting to separate quite nicely. Starting to look like a flag. So I would definitely be looking to buy here. This is a really good setup. Let's do that. And it's probably coming onto here with a target up there. So now you can do that with a stop below that. That's 360 point stop loss for 630 points gain. So it's almost a 2-to-1 trade. Or what you can do is drop down to the 15 minutes on this one. There's your flag. You start getting a break of the flag, you're looking for that with a stop there. So you look at a 100-point stop loss for a 600-point gain. But I think you're probably just going to drift a little bit lower down onto some structure before you're going to get an opportunity to buy into this. And the other way to do this is let it get onto the structure, look for your inside bar, your pin bar, your engulfing bar, take the trade on the break of that, something like that, and then you're looking at a stop down here. So you'll be looking at less than 100-point stop loss for a 600-point gain. So that's kind of a really decent setup of all the Forex setups that we've got. So anyway, that's kind of me for today. S&P and the DAX looking interesting, and Euro British Pound looking just as interesting as well. So that's kind of what we will focus on. The rest of them, we just leave them and let them mature like a good old cheese or red wine. Anyway, hope that helps, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow morning. Cheers for now.